Is China's shadow navy training to take over Taiwan by force? Joining us to discuss is Brent Sadler, Senior Research Fellow for Naval Warfare and Advanced Technology at the Heritage Foundation's Allison Center for National Security. Brent is a former U.S. Navy captain. His final Navy assignment was China branch of Navy staff at the Pentagon. So Brent, such a pleasure to speak with you today. Thank you for joining us. And just first off, please, if you could tell us what we know from ship tracking data and satellite images about China's shadow navy and how it trains and how that could be used in an invasion of Taiwan.
Yeah, so there's a couple elements of this, and thanks again for having me on to talk about a topic that's near and dear to me for many years. So there's the Shadow Fleet, which can be like commercial tankers, but I think most important for an invasion of Taiwan would be the car carriers, the ferries. And for the last several years, there's been lots of reporting and even open source reporting, even in Chinese media, the dual use nature of these ferries that can carry tanks and even launching amphibious vessels from the back end of these car carrying ferries. And some of those you saw just on the screen. So that's one element. The other is there's a logistics. These are the maritime militia, the fishing fleet that have been trained in military tactics and giving secure radios that you see often in the East China Sea, but most recently and very prominently in the South China Sea. These are used for coercive measures. And if you're blockading Taiwan, these forces might also come into play and most certainly would complicate any military response or Coast Guard response to a confrontation in the Senkakus, which is right now heating up, given the recent diplomatic exchange between Beijing and Tokyo over the new prime minister in Tokyo's Takaichi's comments about what a war in Taiwan would mean for Japan's security.
Brent, are there any concrete indicators that, in fact, that this practice run is for an invasion of Taiwan?
I think it follows a trend. Whether or not it means that an invasion is imminent, I think that is probably hard to judge. And I think we're still pretty far away from that. Not far in like years, but certainly months away from anything realistically like that occurring. I think more likely this is continuing refining of their planning and also diplomatic pressuring and posturing. But for their military, the People's Liberation Army and their Navy, it certainly helps them refine the skills. They've been testing new bridging techniques. A mulberry is a type of barge that you bring into shore and you jack up and you lift it up and you can actually move from a ship well offshore via a series of bridging devices very rapidly onto into the land and invasion force. You only build that for one purpose, and the Chinese have built several of these very large mulberries or landing bridging devices, and that's only used for an invasion. And the only place you would use that to invade if you're China is Taiwan. So clearly, the focus of their design of their military, the operations they're doing, the training are all for that purpose.
So keeping those points in mind, the technology, the bridging apparatus, does the Chinese regime have the necessary military capability as of right now to carry out an attack on Taiwan?
I think they've had that capability for quite some time. Whether or not they're successful is a different one. War is perhaps the most risky endeavor in human existence. And so there's never a perfect assurance. I think the leadership in Beijing are really struggling with understanding how would Taiwan's friends in the region, the United States and Japan, respond in a conflict over the future fate of Taiwan. It's an uncertainty that I think is holding them back. But they have a very sizable military. They have spent a decade plus building up their arsenal of weapons and missiles and rockets so that they could launch and sustain for quite a long time, in the order of several years, a war with the United States and others over the fate of Taiwan.
I don't want to say that China is hesitant on attacking Taiwan. Maybe it is. But what do you think are the considerations that it's weighing, whether to attack or not? Would it become a weaker country at the end of this war?
Well, it really matters how the war is concluded and how much damage is done in the process. I mean, for the United States and Taiwan, it could be a Pyrrhic victory, which means we've defeated an invasion and a takeover of Taiwan, but yet we are so weakened that we can't rebuild fast enough or faster than the mainland Chinese and the Chinese Communist Party. And we find ourselves in another war that we just can't resist. This is what, there's a historicals, the Pyrrhic Wars between Rome and Greece. We want to make sure we don't have that. So we have to think more than just one fight, but we have to think through a potential war, what comes out the other side if we can rebuild fast enough, if we are victorious. But it will be a long fight, no matter what.
Okay, Brent, another thing, you've written about China's distant water fishing fleet and how it could enter American waters, if it hasn't happened already, that is. What is this,
Mhm.
and what's at stake here?
Yeah, so this is a very troubling vector of attack or for facilitating a lot of illicit activities and also enforcing or exercising influence over some weakened governments and also smaller Pacific Island countries. The distant water fleet, you've got a fleet of about, say, 7 to 10,000 fishing vessels that the Chinese mainland operate all over the world, in from the Gulf of Guinea off of West Africa, off of the coast of Argentina just recently. There's a fleet right now off of Peru, and they're just outside their waters. At least that's what we're led to believe by the AIS data that they're transmitting. But of course, this illicit fleet does poach in other people's waters. They have been caught time and time again manipulating the AIS systems. This is an automatic transponder that transmits the location and the identity that's required by international law for any vessel greater than 1,000 tons. And so they turn it off. They actually register. They use the copyright, or they copy the transponder and they use it in multiple vessels. So what it looks like on the digital domain as one fishing boat is actually 10 or 20. And so they're cheating on the margins. They are clearly fishing in other people's waters, and they're engaged in illegal activities already by fishing in other people's waters without their permission. That's not a far stretch, and there's anecdotal evidence that these fishing fleets from time to time engage in other illicit activities. One of which that I've heard about is stories of trading in counterfeit cigarettes. So why not fentanyl? Why not other illegal narcotics as well if there's money to be made?
Well, okay, Brent, we always enjoy hearing your analysis and insight. Really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Thank you.